میهنانم.
My fellow
جمهوری اسلامی به پایان خود رسیده
Islamic Republic
و در
has
حال
reached its
سقوط
end
است.
and is in the process of collapsing.
خامنه‌ای همچون
Many
موشی
are fighting
هراسان
rat
زیر
on
زمین پنهان
hiding
شده
underground
و کنترل اوضاع
has
را
lost control of
از
the
دست داده
situation.
است. آنچه آغاز
Has
شده
begun is
برگشت
irreversible.
ناپذیر است. آینده
The
روشن
future is
است
bright.
و ما با هم
Together
از
we will
این
pass
پیچ
through this
تند
sharp turn of
تاریخ
mystery.
عبور خواهیم کرد. در این روزهای
In these
دشوار
difficult days,
دل من با
my heart
همه
is with all the
شهروندان
defenseless
بی‌دفاعی
citizens
است که آسیب دیده‌اند و قربانی
and
جنگ
with all
طلبی
victims of
و
Khomeini's warmongering and
توهمات
delusion.
خامنه‌ای شده‌اند. من سالها
For years, I have
کوشیدم
tried to
تا
prevent our homeland
میهنمان
from being
گرفتار
consumed by the
آتش
fire of war.
جنگ نشود. پایان
The end of the
جمهوری
Islamic Republic
اسلامی
is the end of the
پایان
26
جنگ
year war
46
against the
ساله آن با
Iranian
ملت
nation.
ایران است.
Lower him a little here.
دستگاه
The regime's
سرکوب
apparatus of
رژیم در
repression is
حال
falling apart.
فروپاشی است. تنها یک
All it takes
خیزش
now is a
همگانی
nationwide
لازم است
uprising.
تا این
Put an
کابوس
end to this
برای
nightmare once and for
همیشه
all.
پایان یابد. اکنون
Now is the
زمان
time to
ایستادن
rise.
است. زمان
The time to
بازپسگیری
reclaim Iran.
ایران. همه
Let us
با
all
هم
come forward.
از بندر
From Bandar
عباس
Abbas
تا
to
بندر
Bandar
انزلی،
Anzali.
از
From
شیراز
Shiraz
تا
to Isfahan.
اصفهان، از
From
تبریز تا
Tabriz to
زاهدان،
Zahedan.
از
From
مشهد تا
Mashhad to
اهواز،
Ahvaz.
از شهر
From
کرد تا
Shahara Ekort
کرمانشاه
to Kermanshah.
به صحنه
And bring about
بیاییم.
the end of this regime.
پایان این رژیم را رقم بزنیم. نگران
Not
فردای
fear the
پس
day
از
after the
سقوط
fall of the
جمهوری اسلامی
Islamic Republic.
نباشیم. ایران
Iran will not
دچار
descend into
جنگ
civil war
داخلی
or
و
instability.
بی‌ثباتی نخواهد شد. ما برای
We have a
آینده
plan for Iran's
ایران
future
و
and its flourishing.
شکوفایی‌اش برنامه داریم. ما برای
We are
100
prepared
روز
for the first 100
نخست پس
days
از
after the
سقوط،
fall, for the
دوران
transitional period,
گذار و استقرار یک
and for the
حکومت
establishment
ملی
of
و
a national and
دموکراتیک
democratic government
برای ملت
by the
ایران و
Iranian
به
people
دست
and for the
ملت
Iranian people.
ایران آماده ایم. خطاب به نیروهای
Military, law
نظامی و
enforcement, security
انتظامی،
forces, and state employees.
امنیتی و دولتی که این
Many
روزها
of whom have been
بسیاری
sending
از
me
آنها
messages in
به
recent
من
days,
پیام
I say,
می‌فرستند. برای
not
حفظ
stand against the
رژیمی
Iranian
که
people for the
سقوط
sake of
آن
the
آغاز
regime whose
شده
fall
و
has begun
حتمی
and is
است
inevitable.
روبروی ملت ایران نایستید. خود را
Do not
فدای
sacrifice
رژیم
yourself for a
پوسیده
decaying
نکنید.
regime.
با ایستادن در
By
کنار
standing with the
ملت
people, you can save
جان
your
خود
lives.
را حفظ کنید. در گذار
Play
از
a historic
جمهوری
role in the
اسلامی
transition from
نقشی
the Islamic
تاریخی
Republic
ایفا کنید و در
and
ساختن
take part in
آینده
building the future of
ایران
Iran.
سهیم باشید. ایران
A free
آزاد
and
و
flourishing
آباد
Iran
پیش
lies
روی
ahead of
ماست.
us.
باشد که به
May
زودی
we be
در
together
کنار
soon.
شما باشم. پاینده ایران،
Long live Iran.
زنده باد
Long live
ملت
the Iranian
ایران.
nation. There you have it. Welcome, Neighborhood News. George Webb investigates. He forgot to mention his daughter's beautiful wedding recently.
Well, we
big
missed
minute there.
Hey,
Yeah, so there he
Mark.
was. You called it. That you said it'd be 90 days. He says he's got 100 days planned. So he's
I
got.
was just going to
10
say
days there.
I missed it by 10 days, but
We'll turn you up here. Sorry.
we got the transition period. We missed it by 10 days, but we predicted the Shah's son. We predicted 90 days. It turned out to be 100 days, but this is pretty much going like clockwork. And yeah, what do you think, Mark?
Everything according to plan here, or
well, a lot. You know, as much as this is a kinetic war, it's also an information war, and I'm seeing the, like having this, the shock come on, but I think a lot of like the, I don't know, the threats of war have been more probably to, embolden the Iranian people to, to move against, their oppressors. And this is showing that, well, we can make this like a peaceful transmission, just stand aside and let it fall.
Well,
yeah. Because,
so this is not the Shah. This would be the son of the Shah.
Son of the Shah.
The Shah is gone.
The son of the Shah.
And for folks who saw our show the other day, we covered the wedding of, I guess it would be the daughter of this gentleman who was married to Sherman.
But this is like an extraction of the government that the deep state players put into place just to create a boogeyman over in the Middle East. So we're actually essentially writing something that that was, wrong, like in '79, and trying to let these, Iranian people have, their self-determination back.
Yeah, well,
Well, I agree.
We called it again, or you called it again, that it was going to be.
Yeah. Well, I don't think Trump's going to. Trump's not going to do anything, as far like militarily, other than use the information war side of it, to maybe help prod and push the Iranian people into establishing, self-determination in their country again. And, I think when all's said and done, like he'll involve Putin in this, and they'll create, a pathway to establish a new government in Iran, because Putin and Trump are hated by the same people. And I mean, Iran, think of the pallets of money cash that were shipped over there. It's been a money laundry for the deep state, just like Ukraine. So there's a lot of housekeeping going on here, and trying to do it with as little disruption to the Iranian people as possible.
Well, you have to have some kind of no kings moment. These guys really didn't stand by this guy when the missiles started flying. Russia said they're not going to be involved in the defense of Iran, and I don't believe Turkey has said they would step in with the defense of Iran. And I think the new leaders and new chiefs of staff keep getting executed every day as we go into this war. I think at some point you have my general was killed this morning fatigue, where you're just getting your coffee cup and figuring out who your new boss is, and then he gets killed, and then he gets killed, and the next guy gets killed. And then soon you start, somebody comes around and says, hey, we might make you the boss. And you go, I don't know if I want that job, So I think maybe the war needs to go another couple of weeks with more and more and more seconds in command keep getting killed, where the decapitation strikes, where the fatigue will set in, and then they'll go, you know what, I'm just not going to show up for work tomorrow. And then I think when you get the IRC, the Revolutionary Guard, when they stop patrolling the streets and it gets quiet, then there'll be a lull, and then that's when your first banners start coming out for the Persian Empire and the Persian flags. Like Mark is saying, the great rich history, Cyrus the Great flags start coming out. The Iranian-Israeli long history together. We start getting those kind of speeches. We're not there yet because they have a secret police, just like the Shah had the Savak. But that's where I think we are in the cycle, is we're waiting for the fatigue of the decapitation strikes to set in for the ICRG to say, no, we're going to kind of just, remember the Nazis at the end of World War II kind of just blended. There were no Nazis after World War II. In May of 1945, all the uniforms, disappeared. And I think that's where we're getting close to with the IRCG.
My thought, just kind of another way, that this isn't going to end until that big, beautiful bill gets passed, because you got to keep the neocons in line to get this through. So I would venture to guess that this will linger on. The big, beautiful bill will pass, and then there'll be peace in Iran.
It's interesting you tie those two things together. What do you think is in the big, beautiful bill? The money for the record defense budget? Is that what you're saying?
I think it's more to get the support of the neocons. Okay, to be on board with the things that are there. Okay, it's maybe the because you still kind of have a splintered, Republican Party there. You got the neocons, and then you have the populist nationalists.
The Thomas Masseys is who they want to come around. I thought
the Thomas Masseys, yeah.
He's not neocon.
Well,
he's not Republican, kind of, but But I'm just kind of in that, because if you don't get the big, beautiful bill passed, you have the tax increases, and, probably we'll have economic problems in this country. I don't know. I haven't gotten to read it, but I just have this sense by the behaviors of like Lindsey Graham and that that might be a factor in this. But that's just me, chewing it and thinking of different angles on this, and that's one.
Well, what do you think? What do you guys think about the Weizmann Institute getting hit? Because the Weizmann Institute is sort of the University of Chicago, like the Manhattan Project for Israel,
like the Getty Museum.
Well, I would say it's more like the home of Mossad nuclear program and bioweapons program, as well as cancer and an academic institution as well. But I'm just saying, hitting the Weizmann Institute is their kind of Harvard or their University of Chicago.
All in one. I mean, Chicago, Harvard, MIT, Yale, all in one. I mean, it's a smaller country. They don't have as many institutions. Certainly the Weizmann Institute is the institution of institutions in Israel, the most renowned tertiary learning institution that the country has by
this
leaps
could be,
and bounds is the Weizmann
on the
Institute.
other side here is maybe trying to get the the Israeli people to rise up against their aggressive government. There's some of that possibly.
Yeah, I think this is a psychological, if nothing else. This is like Remember the Maine or Pearl Harbor or whatever. This is how, like Aaron was saying, our MIT, our Harvard, our Yale, our Columbia, our Princeton, all rolled into one, and then destroying and blowing this up really is hitting at the heart of Israelis. And I don't know what kind of response there's going to be here, but it's going to be aggressive, I think.
Well, I think one element of what's happening, just as we talk about this sort of like, I don't want to say purgatory. It feels like almost like a purgatory, though. Like this is just like a war that isn't really being allowed to escalate, where the players in the war know that they could take it. Instead, they're just sort of using sticks rather, I shouldn't say, I mean, they're using missiles and high level technology, but this could get worse. And instead it's, the lobbing of missiles right now, not nuclear missiles, not even biological or chem missiles, which both nations presumably have. So I was noting that in all other conflicts, it's been a couple decades, but in the previous conflicts with Israel, the neighboring nations came in quickly, right? It was all, the minute something happened, all these different Arab nations came to one another's defense, you might say, and all rallied against Israel. Of course, the Yom Kippur War would be probably the best example, right? Where they're all coming together against Israel. And I think they wanted to see right now, I think they wanted to sort of prod for a couple of days or weeks to see who might step up. You got Pakistan is talking, right? As like, oh, okay, Pakistan might come to Iran's defense, but like Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, I don't know that they have the means. Nobody's coming to Iran's defense here. And I know there's a Sunni Shiite divide also, which is very dynamic there. Iran being the Shiites, most of the rest of the Middle East being the Sunnis. But in the past, that didn't matter. Coming together against Israel was something they were happy to do or, willing to do. And now it's not really happening. And I think nobody was sure what exactly was going to happen. It's like, well, let's see what's really going to happen in the Middle East. Are they going to all, in lockstep come against us, or do we what was the deal they made? What was the deal Jared Kushner made with the UAE, the Jerusalem deal, or whatever? There was some deal that was brokered with
the Abraham Accords.
The Abraham Accords, right? I think it's sort of like, let's test the strength of these Abraham Accords. We've made the Abraham Accords with these guys. They say we're cool now. Let's really go get Iran and see if they mean it. This will test our alliances that we've built here in the Abraham Accords. I kind of see that going on. I don't know. Maybe I'm.
I think you're right. I think all of these things, it's sort of a chess match. You may study all the openings and you may war game all the things you think are going to happen in the chess game, But it's not really until you get to the chess game where you start seeing the moves from move to move that you really are in it, and now we're really in it. And I agree. If you step in now, if Russia steps in, for instance, they're not going to get the deal. Mark mentioned Ukraine. You're not going to get the deal you want in Ukraine. So Russia's going to stay out of it. Turkey doesn't want to endanger their NATO status, so they're not going to step in. So is Jordan going to step in? And then now all the Jordanian Air Force bases and jets are fair game. Is UAE going to step in, or any of the Sunni nations going to step in, or any of the 67 and 73 nations going to step in and have their air forces blown up?
Nobody's
I think that's what's going on here. Is like, okay, you were the one who poked the Israel in the eye. You were the one who poked the little kid in the eye and said, we're going to create a nuclear missile, whether you like it or not. And now the United States is a big question here, because I think if the United States comes in, then a whole bunch of Arab nations need to react, right? Like, we're going to stick up for our little brother, Iran, because you're bringing in your really big brother, United States. But as long as the U.S. stays out of it and plays mainly a defensive role in shooting these drones down, I think you might be right. I'm waiting for this to go to the next level. Not a ground invasion, but a special forces operations, sort of like, if you remember the fort at Abel in Emmanuel, where all the Nazi paratroopers land on top of the fort, and then they throw the canisters down the air vents, and then everyone at Fort Dow or the nuclear facilities surrenders. And then they go in and then they dynamite it. And that may be a better thing to do than bunker busters. I think they might be in a position now where they could fly in special forces to do special forces operations instead of just being an air war.
Well, I certainly note that one of the directors of the previous Iranian Special Forces operations, or United States Special Operations Forces, to go into Iran has got a lot to say in social media these days, right? That being Steve Bannon, if I'm not mistaken. Wasn't Bannon
I don't know.
Operation Eagle guy, or no? Or that's
he was an intelligence officer. I don't think Steve Bannon ever wore any boots.
Okay, but he was very involved in this, wasn't he? Wasn't
yeah.
this a big thing that Bannon was involved with? I shouldn't say he was the special operator, but I know Bannon got his start with this, and I've always found that very interesting.
He was in the Navy, so he probably was on a ship that was involved.
Well, he was he was actually the naval intelligence liaison to Reagan at this time. Okay, so of Eagle Claw, I've actually talked to Marines and Navy corpsmen that went and got the bodies from the crash here. Just happened to be visiting Washington, D.C. But this one was the Carter, where the Carter's trying to go get the hostages, and the planes the helicopters collided out in the desert. And then a couple of them got problems with their sand and their rotors and stuff. It was a bad sandstorm and so forth, and ended up in this big disaster called Operation Eagle Claw. Bannon's active in social media, but isn't Bannon kind of in the Tucker Carlson thing, which is we should just leave well enough alone and not get involved?
Yeah. No, I'm not saying he's like advocating for it. I'm just he's putting his 2 cents in, but I mean, I guess that's not a surprise. Bannon putting his 2 cents in on
he
things.
He doesn't want the United States involved in it.
Right. No, precisely. Right. I'm not saying he wants to go for it. I just it's what I think of when you mention special forces operations in Iran. But hopefully it goes better than that. Hopefully, if they do send in a special forces operation, it has a better result than Eagle Claw.
Well, what you normally do in these psychological operations, right, is in order to get the people to rise up. We just played Reza Pahlavi, and he's saying people rise up, but people don't do that by themselves. They are looking out the window, seeing who else is waving a flag. They don't start waving the flag and become a target and become the first one. So normally what they do is they have a pre-planned group that goes out. We probably should play a little of this because Trump lashed out at Kooky. He now calls Go ahead.
Didn't you carry this, into places like churches, temples, and mosques, and work from that angle to, talk to the people?
Yeah, and you would think that there would be a strategy. If there is a regime change strategy, they would have thought this through and have the Persian Cyrus the Great flags to wave and the Persian Empire flags. And algebra is great, isn't it? Without us, no calculus. You would think you would have a color revolution all ready to go. I'd be interesting to see what these guys say, because I think they've said that Trump's lost his way.
Here, we'll listen to a little here. Huh?
Invaders and redo the commercial relationships in the world around trade deals and bring high value added manufacturing jobs back here. They're trying to shut all three down, right? But the one that they're obsessed with the most, which I find strange, is the forever wars. They've got to be in the forever wars, and particularly in the Middle East. I mean, this is what, and I'm a big supporter of Israel.
Yes.
And I'm telling people, hey, if we get sucked into this war, which inexorably looks like it's going to happen on the combat side, it's going to not just blow up the coalition, it's also going to thwart what we're doing with the most important thing, which is the deportation of the illegal alien invaders that are here. If we don't do that, we don't have a country. And you just see right now, they're doubling, tripling out. This is actually potentially a real civil war in our biggest cities. And President Trump has to have our backing. And this came out of nowhere. I mean, the trade deals you saw, he put together Liberation Day, but they've been thinking about it a long time. I mean, Trump's been talking about this since Lou Dobbs back in the 90s. He lays that out there. It's very sophisticated. He's got Scott Bessent running around with Lutnick. They're trying to make these deals. He sealed the border already in the first 60 days. Now we're really going down and actually having the deportation, see the fight. And then out of nowhere comes a war with Persia. It's like a shooting war with Persia, a massive shooting war with Persia. It's like, how did this happen? And that's why I've been up as a defender of Israel and someone that's very pro-Israel. I've been saying, hey, this is going to be the end of Israel because of the way these decisions have been made. And you have, I think, shockingly today, early when we had you on the show, you bring up a point that we have to address, which I think it's the thing itself. What is it about this apparatus? When you have a coalition that's like 1932 that's coming together, like Roosevelt had Harvard professors and crackers and Democrats and ranchers out west and big city bosses and the Irish and the Italians, and he put it all together and they juggled it. And they
got Brooklyn, Butte, Montana, Birmingham, Alabama, and they're all on the same side. Like, how does that happen?
And they govern literally almost all the way to Trump. Reagan took out part of it. Newt Gingrich took out part of it, but it was 50, 60, 70 years. We have the same ability. We have hardscrabble Hispanics on the Rio Grande Valley in South Texas. We have tech bros. We have, economic nationalists. We have economic populists. We have people that want to stop their forever wars. There's three planks. And right at the beginning of it, and it's on the 10th anniversary of coming down the Golden Escalator. That was 10 years ago, Sunday. And I tell people, as many triumphs and tragedies, victories and defeats, good days and horrible days, when we're winning and sometimes we're losing, those 10 years of everything that's gone on is just the preamble for where we are today on the convergence of these crises. And now, all of a sudden, a shooting war where they're taking the Nimitz battle group out of the South China Sea and sending 3 carrier battle groups now to the North Arabian Sea, Red Sea, plus Arleigh Burke destroyers and a whole fleet in the Eastern Mediterranean. We're prepping for a major shooting war. And how did it happen? I think what's most shocking is what you said. Hey, it was like Iraq. You're inexorably just drawn, and decisions kind of just happen. It's like, what's happened over the last 72 hours? How did we even get to this point? How did this actually happen? Who made these decisions when we had the intel out there that this was not like a thing? This was something that was going to happen a year or two from now.
Yes.
Bibi admitted to Brett Baer on Sunday night. And so the question before us is not simply the Israel-Persia situation, is what the fuck is going on in this city that just drives this city, whether you're Barack Obama or Donald Trump. And if we don't sort it out now, I mean right now, that's what we have to have a throwdown. We have to name names. We have to expose it. If we don't throw it out now, throw down now in the summer of 2025, we're not going to have a country. Forget.
You think you leave it right there?
Yeah. So
I'm surprised, man. I'm surprised. Yeah. What do you got? What are you thinking?
Well, first of all, rebuttal. It's called the bomb. It's called the bomb. It's called the nuclear bomb. So Bannon, for some reason, doesn't understand that this is what it's all about. It's them. Now, I admit the timing like Mark said, the timing of this is bad because it breaks up the coalition, right? It breaks up the momentum because it divides the Trump people. Yes, let's stand with Israel. No, let's not. It does divide the coalition. But if Trump brings in the battle groups and uses the F-18s that are all on the all on the Gerald Ford and the Nimitz and all this, and he uses them to shoot down drones, and he provides a defensive canopy for Israel, and the Chaim Weizmann University doesn't get blown up, then you can't blame United States for helping to defend Israel against offensive attacks. Right. So we're providing, Bannon was a big fan of Reagan and Star Wars. We're just basically providing a naval air canopies over, the key cities to help. Now, you don't see any of those battle groups engaging in an attack on Iran. Not even the bunker buster has occurred yet. So he's playing cards that haven't been played yet by Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Again, I say special forces with Ibn Emmanuel is the way to do this. With Israeli, IDF is just land on top and, throw the grenades down the air vents. Nobody's up on top defending it. And then you take over these things one at a time. And then you show those things, those psychological victories to the people of Iran. Yesterday, I think when the live news coverage was, we will kill you in your chairs. We will kill you in your beds tonight. And then the newsroom explodes, and then they all go running. That's psychologically damaging that they're in control, right? Yeah. So I think you have to have a few more psychological operations here with victories so the people get the sense that, wait a minute, the regime is not in control. The regime is on the run. And they're not going to take anybody's word for it. They're going to have to see, this is what Hitler did with the Nazis, not the Nazis, but the guys who flew in on the gliders on the top of Ibn Emmanuel. They were all standing there on top of the fort, all smoking cigars. Obviously, they took the fort. That was the impregnable fort. It could never possibly be taken. The Belgian fort, it couldn't possibly be taken. Well, we just took it. And by the way, in the previous war, they never took it. That's where they were stopped. That was the Maginot Line in Belgium before, right? And now here, boom, they take it in the first couple of days. Because why? They decided to employ paratroopers. And there is nobody, this is where I say this would keep Trump from having to use a B-2. There's nobody on top of the fort. There's nobody there to defend it. I went to the Albert Canal. I went to the celebration, the 100th celebration. Where was in the 100th? Maybe it was the 95th of them celebrating how they stopped the Germans there in World War I. But this went like nobody's business in World War II because they used special forces. So I really think Israel's got to show the world that we're winning, and it's not going to be a long war. This is going to be a lightning war. It's going to be a 67s, type, or 73 type 7 or 8 day war. It's going to be this smashing victory, and then it's going to be over. And now we need to worry about reconstruction. The longer Israel waits to do these kind of operations, the more you're going to have the Steve Bannon second guessing you, the more the Tucker Carlsons are going to second guess you, and the more it's going to seem like a long, protracted Iraq or Afghanistan.
Do we have, the Chinese Communist Party in the background in Iran?
Not yet. I think if the United States gets involved, I think yes. There's the 30,000-pound bunker buster right there, the GBU 57.
Because I was just like, wasn't Iran selling like oil to the Chinese? And I'm wondering if you disrupt the oil market by maybe taking Iran's capacity out for some period of time, you're going to also get oil prices up. And when you have a trade deficit, maybe you can't buy Iran. Well, we have it here in the United States. You can buy our oil. It's at this price.
Well, I think there's still an Iranian-Israeli they're talking about a pipeline, Trans-Arabian pipeline. You see what I'm saying is there's a couple of prairie dogs out here. There might be a ground squirrel. You know what I mean? There's no Iranian Revolutionary Guard out there, protecting this thing. You come in and you go to the air vents is the first place you go to. You put a stopper in the air vent and everybody comes up. And then you say, walk over there and you film it. And then you show the Iranian people that this is the impregnable fortress of your, crown jewel of your nuclear program. And oh, by the way, we own it. This gets you away from the bunker buster, type scenario. And I agree with Bannon to a degree, is keeping the United States out of it as much as possible is a good thing. But you have to do psychological signaling to the people of Iran. You can't just have the ex-Shah make a speech. You have to show them that, hey, we're standing on, this iconic symbol of the old regime, and we're using it for our picnic table today. That's that type of thing.
We're using up old armaments and technology, just using up the resources, and then you'd have to buy new weaponry. Because it reminded me back with that hostage crisis in '79, or the failed release there, or the failed rescue of the hostages. Okay, that reflected badly on the military, and that was kind of the political capital that Reagan needed for his rebuilding, the military during his administration.
Yeah, these psychological operations really do affect. I mean, if you remember, Carter's last 444 days was all hostage. Nobody talked about anything else. And it did, Reagan's first day, I remember the hostages being released, the Danny Castellero October surprise. So these psychological operations are important. I do think the taking of Fordow, Natanz, these various things with special forces are the things that would signal to the Iranian people that the Khomeini is not in charge, and maybe there's a little bit more softening that the Israeli Air Force has to do. I would say, how many missiles are left, right? Maybe that's the question before there's total air dominance. When do they start running? Like, remember the Schwarzkopf 100 hours where they were all just running from their tanks? When do we get to the point where they're just running? Are you going to stay at Fordow if you're IRGC, knowing what's coming right now? I mean, I don't know the situation on the ground. Maybe it's a week more of them firing their missiles and being stopped by the Iron Dome. And then also Israel taking out the missile launchers, a combination of those two things before they start these special operations. But they've got to start thinking about special operations.
Some of the things that I've run across here was in Iran that they had shut down the internet, so people didn't have access. And then Elon comes in and set up Starlink and allow the people to connect again. And that's a big thing if we want to try and make things happen, is allowing people to still be able to communicate. So that's in the background too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think keeping the communications is best, because mass formation psychosis is much more likely than you saw me here. I did a Substack this morning in 2017. Bannon said we're going to be fighting a war in every city as soon as we get involved, because he's talking about the blowback. And we covered this in Operation Blackjack in 2017. If you remember, we said Trump Tower in Chicago would be a target. Trump Tower in New York would be a target. Las Vegas casino, the properties in Florida, and so forth. So, we went and covered this in 2017. Andy McCabe had a plan. We talked about Club K with missiles. Then I updated it to say, Iranian drones now coming out of the Club K type containers. But my point is, the thing Trump should be doing is investing in the things to knock down the blowback right now. Concentrate on the defense. concentrate on the Kevin Timmer sniffing dogs, start going over the containers, start using the high tech. There's the Club K with the missile launcher coming out of it. Now, is it going to spit out drones? We don't know, but these low tech and high tech, a combination of the both, but defensively, this is the Club K container that we outed in 2017. This is the way to go about it. Only 1% of the containers are checked. And pardon me for being a container guy, but you really got to get the doggy over there. They scratch, and there's them trying to bring in the sniper weapons into the Trump, VIP area. Scratchy scratch. The dog can do a lot of work for you. The Kevin Timmer dog can do a lot of work. And also the radiation detection equipment. You don't even have to open the trucks. You just wand it, and there's portable devices as well. Now's when you want to start looking at our ports. These are going to be the places in Project Blackjack, the Blackstone Express, etc., where the attack is going to come from. I think Bannon hasn't done the work. He hasn't done the mental exercising. He hasn't done the footwork either in the field. So everything to him is just this big, quagmire. we did the work. We went to all the ports. We went to all the Trump properties. We went and looked at all the trucking companies. We went and looked at all the places. We interviewed the radiation detection experts. We went and interviewed the dog detection experts. There is a way to win this thing if it's quick and decisive, and the right psychological operations are used in Iran. It could free the Iranian people to regain the Persian Empire. And so that's really what we're working toward, rather than just running around as Chicken Little and in a state of confusion like Bannon.
Well, just one last comment on Bannon, with his whole the coalition and the unity, and now the Ian Carrolls are going to fight with the Mark Levins, and the Tucker Carlsons are going to fight with the Candace Owenses, and all the or whatever, whoever's fighting. That's what Palantir is for, guys. Trump's not running again. He's not running in 2028. So they don't care about testing the coalition. They want to dossier the coalition and see who the coalition really is. What is MAGA? We don't really know. It's kind of mushy. There's a lot of people that think they're MAGA or were MAGA or they were MAHA enough to be MAGA. And so they really need these next few years, and they need these hot button issues, and they need Twitter and all of our tweets to know who's who and who they got and what their opinions are and what what magazines do they like to subscribe to, or what videos do they want to watch, or who is who. And in order to really test the Trump coalition, you got to do things like this. You got to do some kineticness here and there, and you got to throw Israel into
so
the
you
mix.
know what they're going to do to us.
Sure, that's what I think, is I think we're all being dossiered. That there's just a big there's an IP address out there for all of us, and there's a whiteboard placing us in the 10 out of 10 MAGA, 9 out of 10 MAGA, 5 out of 10 MAGA, and they'll decide who they'll run for president and what they'll do with the society as the years go on, based on their dossieing of us and the right, because I think they got the left pretty well figured out, and how they're going to vote. So they really, the right is more dynamic in its thoughts, and they need to have that figured out so they can run the right candidates and do the right things. And that's what I think is going on. I guess that's a little dark.
Well,
but
my first question is, what good is a coalition if, when it comes down to when you really need it, it falls apart? You create a parachute not for when it's because it's light to carry. You create a parachute because when you jump out of the plane, you want it to open. That's all it. That's the definition of a parachute. It's just cloth that's occupying your back until then. So to me, a coalition that just looks good on your back, it doesn't mean anything. It's really when the chips are down. And my point is, I'm old enough, Mark's old enough, you're too young, Aaron, but I remember the 67 war. I remember the 73 war. I remember Vietnam. I remember all, Iran, Iraq, and Afghanistan, and all these things. And so I know the difference. And my dad was involved in World War II, right? So there is a difference here between when you give terrorists nuclear weapons, like the DNC did. And I went to Piketon and I found that the deal went to the DNC, and the DNC profited so Hillary could become president. And the short-sighted goals of the DNC to make money on selling the old Russian uranium to the Iranians is why we have to go clean this mess up now. Now, the Steve Bannons don't seem to understand that highly enriched uranium from Russian missiles could also be in highly enriched uranium in Iranian missiles, right? They don't understand that threat, right? And I love Ian Carroll, I love him to death and so forth, but they haven't lived through Israel's being surrounded and attacked by everyone. They would have a different perspective. We did Birth of a Nation with Janice Meyer, and it tells the story of Israel being completely surrounded from day one, starting with the Holocaust. So that's what the perspective you have. Now, I don't want to get into a long dragged out war either, right? I don't want that. I don't want America to lead this thing at all. I do want America to provide a defensive canopy over the Israeli cities, and I do want the Israelis to get more aggressive. Maybe it'll be in 7 days after more bombing, but to get more aggressive with special forces and send more signals to the Iranian people to rise up. But you're always going to have the hand wringers who don't see the threat matrix, and they don't see, you're always going to have the hand wringers that are always going to go, oh, we should back off and not do anything just so we can say we can protect our precious coalition. Coalition isn't worth anything if you can't flex it when the world stage is being. This problem, I said it for 7 years, was created by Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation and Podesta ARMZ selling the Iranians this highly enriched uranium. We traded one Cold War for another Cold War. We took all the winnings of the Cold War, which was the highly enriched uranium, the 20,000 missiles, megatons of megawatts, was supposed to come to Piketon, and then it went straight through Piketon. It was just basically didn't even get to Piketon. It was just wanded like a UPS, blip, with a laser. It was wanded, and then it went straight to the Iran nuclear deal for Hillary Clinton's. And this, you don't need this complicated chart.
I know.
All you need to do is just rip off the Russia sign off the missile and then slap a Iran sign on and have Hillary rip it off the Russia sign with one hand and slap it on the Iran side with the other one. They tried to make uranium one too complicated. It isn't complicated. It's Hillary selling all the Russian to the Iran, and we got to take it out. And it created a problem. It's not really uranium one. That was just for downblending. It was actually megatons of megawatts that created this problem.
Right.
And we got to knock it out.
Certainly the DTRA going over there and saying they were going to downblend all of these scary missiles. That is, and then the world proliferated after that. There's now 30 something nuclear nations from 2 or 3 back then. So it was that's how it got out.
One nuclear missile ruins your whole day. And think about it. Think of the last time you had coffee, and then think of a nuclear mushroom cloud a mile from where you have coffee, and then just think of how the 800-mile-an-hour winds, the 800-degree temperatures, the radiation. Think about how that does not go with scones or bagels or whatever your accompanying drink is, and that's why we don't want Iran to have nuclear weapons.
Yep. You got comment, Margaret? I was going to use this topic to transition to the Minnesota thing.
Sure.
If you want to final comments on this or anything, Mark?
Well, I have my own thought. The one way to bring the Iranian people to the streets is just like close the banks, and the ATMs don't work anymore and people don't have access to their money. It won't take long.
Yeah. Well, that may be coming. That may be a part of the plan.
All right. So I'm going to try my best to see if I can take the Iran, the uranium one, the Iran deal, everything that we experienced with Imran and all that, way back when, right? To go to, I can't remember the story. I've forgotten at least so much of the research. We're so far ahead of the rest of the news that it's hard to keep up sometimes. doing this thing to me here, but this was Papa Johnny, the Pakistani general Papa Johnny. And if I recall, there was a payoff system going on. I don't remember if it was Imran or if it was just Debbie Wasserman Schultz or who was gifting Papa John's pizza franchises to Pakistani generals. It's almost like, hey guys, we've taken a lot of this megatons to megawatts uranium and we've cashed you out, with straight USAID cash. We're really going to need to start finding a more sophisticated way to launder this or to, make these exchanges. And so they started exchanging Papa John's pizza franchises. This was this big scandal back in, I guess it would have been 2017, 2018, 2019, that, and then the founder of Papa John's Pizza had to resign. And, there's a whole thing in there, which we don't need to review the entirety of the Papa John's Pizza scandal and the Haqqani network and all the different Pakistani, generals and people who were gifted these Papa John's Pizza franchises, other than to say that when I saw the video of the roommate, quote unquote, of the Minnesota killer, here's the video here. So I saw this, and he's wearing a Papa John's Pizza uniform, and this was the main piece of evidence to me, or not to me, this was the main piece of evidence for like the first 12 hours that like, it is Vance Bolter. This is the roommate, this is our proof that, this is the guy, right? And it's like, I don't know. I suppose maybe I'm diving a little too far into the steganography of things, but, we do know they have to signal, they have to use the news cycle and they have to signal one another in certain ways. So I'm like, he's wearing his Papa John's uniform to let the network know that, hey guys, this is us. We're on top of this, the network, which has brought you, Imran and Asim Bajwa and all the others and all these things, like this is how they would signal that they're connected, and it makes me think, if I had more time, I'd go to Minnesota and I'd go to all the Papa John's pizza franchises around in the area. And I'd be like, does this guy really work here? Because it's possible he's just a delivery guy for Papa John's, but I don't know. I saw that and it just made me think that it's too good to be true. Maybe, I don't know, but you don't have to comment on that if you don't want, George. I don't know, just something. Well, that's my way. We'll talk about the Minnesota guy now in the Minnesota case in our last half hour here. So my transition, if I couldn't walk my transition, throw it away and
If you want a breadcrumb away, and we know the juice of the story. The juice of the story, I keep telling people, is 8 years ago when I was meeting with all the Somali kids, the 2 soccer teams, the 22 kids. They were trying to do the Boko Haram thing. They were trying to do the Al-Shabaab thing. They were trying to radicalize these kids. They were trying to get them into bomb making classes. And the bolter that was the focus of the bolter was this Ralph Bolter. He was the FBI guy that was the bestie with Andrew McCabe, and he was the key liaison to these Somali guys, right? And the key is we have Trump do some kind of attack, and now we have all the Somali kids who look Iranian, and then we say the Iranians are attacking. You have to take these kids with some kind of cafe au lait coloring in their skin, maybe not as dark as me as a Cherokee, but they have to have some kind of coloring. You know what I mean? And then you have to have them do the suitcase nuke, or you have to have them press the button for the missile or press the button for the autonomous drones, right? But you get the idea here. It's, Trump has blowback now. This isn't a planned thing that's been in the works for 8 years with the FBI to overthrow Trump. This hasn't been something that we've been working for overthrow for 8 years. Right. This is a spontaneous, like Bannon. This is a spontaneous. I love it. This is spontaneous. Right. Well, he might think like grass is spontaneous, but actually it's dormant in the winter and then it grows more in the spring. These things aren't spontaneous. It's not spontaneous, victualism, it comes from cells, Steve. You got to explain the life cycle to some of these people, but this is not something that's spontaneous. This has been well planned as an overthrow plan. They war game this thing every day at the Pentagon, constantly. What are we going to have the Somalis or the Iranian stand-ins? What are we going to have them throw this time? Well, how about dirty bombs? Well, okay, great. Okay, well, how about a real bomb? How about a real suitcase bomb? Okay, great. How about drones? How about a missile? Whatever, and then punch it into the war game. We're at McNair University. Let's run it through the war game. So my point is that Bolter, somebody talked, right? Somebody let out, because we've been talking about this 8 years. Somebody let this out, and they went around and killed everybody that was a leaker, right? So any more focus on the cleanup on aisle 7 that the guy worked for Walls is the wrong place to focus. Focusing on Vance Bolter is not where they're going to come up with all kinds of manifestos and all kinds of fake evidence and all kind of people who look like they ate pizza franchises. They're going to come up with a million things about how he's a Trump guy, right? When clearly he worked for Walls and he worked for the previous governor. This is the juice where we were 8 years ago. Really, it's developing out a group of people who are willing to commit murder. Right, it's really hard, actually, right? But this Bolter has been doing that. I can say definitively, task force said this is where it was going on. I went there and found out that's exactly where it was going on. And I've been approached by people who are bomb makers who are trying to get people to build bombs for the FBI, and he turned out to be an FBI informant. I know how they work, right? The overthrow plan, the no more kings or the no kings plan. You have to have people that are willing to do the suitcase bombings. You have to have a disaffected group of people whose parents were murdered and may have been child soldiers themselves in order to do this. This is Peter Strzok, right? In Columbus, this is Peter Strzok in Minneapolis. It's going to come from those two locations, pure, plain and simple.
I'm noticing that Iran has replaced Ukraine in the news cycle. There's no reporting at all on Ukraine now. It's all on Israel and Iran. So I think,
yeah, they want the Ukrainians
doing a cleanup in Ukraine and don't want to report it.
They're trying to turn Ukraine around to be the defensive provider, the defensive drone provider for our cities. That Eric Prince today is saying we want Ukraine because they have the best defensive drone. Well, that means a mass formation psychosis is coming where we're going to be attacked by coordinated drones, right? Well, who is that? The only people on the, being set up for that is the Iranians. That for blowback, we're going to need defensive Golden Dome against drones. I haven't been attacked by a drone lately. Don't worry, you will. That's what Ralph Bolter is saying today. Eddie McCabe and Peter Strzok are saying, don't worry, you will.
Mm-hmm. So a couple other interesting, just tidbits with the story coming out of Minnesota. Beyond the Papa John's, folks can dive into that if they want to. The Papa John's thing's kind of out of left field, but
That's
just something I noticed.
That's just money laundering.
Yeah, something I noticed there, right? But I find it interesting that the George Floyd incident and this incident are in such close proximity to one another. And even though, the George Floyd incident wasn't, that happened and then the protests kicked off, whereas these protests were already scheduled and then this event happened. But just these events in such close proximity in Minnesota, as precipitating to, street protests and things seems a little too coincidental for me also.
There's no doubt in my mind there was supposed to be a Sarnev brother type Boston bombing, pressure cooker bombing at No King somewhere in Minnesota. And the only reason they were even talking to that gal who was the speaker is finding out where their representatives weren't going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't come off. And when they found out about it, they had whistleblowers and then they had to kill him. Right. So that it's like the brave police found my murderer. Right. So my point here is we got to expect this. This is going to come along. They're going to blame Trump. The blowback attack is going to happen, is going to be the get meaner part of No Kings. It's coming. We got to go back to the networks that we've established, the Haqqani network, the Blackstone Express. I've outlined all the places that they're all delineated from task forces, and then all the research we've done. It's going to come. They've got it planned. It's in the shoot. The script is written, and the actors are out there. We just got to stop it. I mean, the funny part about the Papa Johnny's guy, the Boswell guy, is he's got 85 different pizza franchises, right? And none of them are in Pakistan. It's obvious. But we said this. We said this with AQ Khan. AQ Khan, supposedly, he was the Pakistani scientist that gave Iran the centrifuge technology, IR1, IR2, IR4, IR8, etc., to supposedly spin up a new bomb. And we said, okay, if Pakistan has a bomb and exploded a bomb in 92, right, and Pakistan shares a border with Iran, so there's no way we can control the border, right? AQ Khan there, and we know that Pakistan is giving the technology for a bomb. Do you think that it's really going to take Iran 30 years to come up with a bomb? If nothing else, they could just rent a truck
across the street or walk across.
They could rent a truck and just drive the Pakistani bomb over there, right? So that's my point. Is this has been there for 30 years? The people who think, oh, Pakistan has a bomb right around the corner. Iran's had a bomb right around the corner. No, they've had a bomb for 30 years. All you need is a Ryder truck, right? So my point is that you don't want Iran to have this capability, and you don't want them to have the suitcase nukes, right? And you should be working on, I don't know what Bongino is doing. I have no idea what Kat Patel is doing, but this is called counterterrorism.
Well, I think we could, do a few comments and leave it there. We are at an hour. You went 2.5 hours earlier today. Now that George has his YouTube back, it's definitely a little bit of a fire hose here, folks. So get your research hats on this summer. Or they'll just cancel the channel again soon. Who knows? Who's to say how long?
Oh, they're going to cancel the channel. I'm going to get blown away really quickly.
You think so? Well, you never know. They could be, doing something that we're not informed of. Maybe, YouTube's got a plan. I think they are scared of Elon. I think Elon and Twitter has scared them to the point where they are trying to, just grasp at what they can do to get their market share back.
Because he's got all of the data on Twitter.
Yep. And that's what you use to feed AI. So, here's Zuckerberg. Nobody's on Facebook anymore. Zuckerberg falling further and further behind in AI. He had to buy scale AI. Yeah.
So, but we leave right there. The Minnesota story is fading a little bit, but we may jump back in.
Okay, you got I wanted to maybe bring in because I'm thinking, wasn't he a BlackBerry? That's that Attorney General Keith Ellison, and how much is he behind a lot of this stuff?
Sure,
it completely centers around Keith Ellison because he's protected from judicial seal, so he can seal all this stuff, and so that's why it's been there for 8 years. That's why it isn't going anywhere else. It's going to be Keith Ellison.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why George Floyd happened when it did. That's where it's like, whenever they're gonna, unleash the summer of love in America, it's gonna start in Minnesota.
And he's an Antifa, he totes an Antifa Bible with him. He's a Quran beater for the Antifa.
Yep, absolutely. Antifa has this whole thing where they say they don't run for office, because they just want to take down the system, but they've got their allies on the inside, whether they like to admit it or not. And certainly,
but I show pictures of him, posing with the Antifa, Army manual, basically.
Oh yeah, he's U of D. Yep. Fascinating stuff. So here, Carol's here. A great comment from Carol. The military trains teams of assassins. They go through initiation together. They are told who the bad guys are. Yeah, certainly special forces have a lot of work to do. To also be doing the research is a little hard for them. Better ingredients, better pizza. Thank you, Dave, for being here.
The whole Papa John's story. Okay. I've, from when it started, just loosely, and it's just, I'm wondering how it maybe connects to Pizzagate or that kind of a, or they, it's just like, I just don't know. It just kind of. I just just because of the it muddied into the newsroom and like, well, why is this guy leaving? What was going on? But always pizza joints were always a good place to launder cash.
Well, yeah,
that's launder cash. And the thing is that what's my incentive as a Pakistani general to drive a truck over and give Iran a nuclear weapon. Oh, I'm going to get 85 pizza joints out of this. Great. Okay. I'll drive it over today. I'll deliver my pizza for your pizza. I'll get 85 franchises for one nuclear weapon. Sure. No problem. So that's what's going on here it's pizza. It's like, it's Caesar's, right? You want a little Caesar? You want to be a Caesar? You deliver me 85 pizza joints. I'll deliver you the little Caesar pizza.
Mhm.
Right. You get the nuke. I get the pizza joints. We got a deal.
One other comment I wanted to mention while I had you here, you were talking on your show earlier about the Esperanto. I think a commenter mentioned the Esperanto thing or whatever. And I just, Esperantist Baha'ism is something everyone should look up. There is the Esperanto and there are the Baha'i. And I think ultimately with the Iran war, the real winner of this Iran war will be the Baha'i. The Baha'i will ultimately be the ones, and especially if they can get a twofer, if they can get Netanyahu and Israel to change their internal politics through this, then the Baha'i is really cooking. But certainly they were exiled from Iran. They now live in Haifa. The whole capital of the Baha'i religion is in Haifa, which is getting pummeled by missiles right now. But the Iranians, they treat the Baha'i the way they treat their Yazidis. I mean, they'll kill them. So they definitely have had a horrible history there. But yeah, I just
This is why I want to do the extra hour, even if I have 5 hours of my stuff, because it is this angle, this religious angle, right? Reconstructing the old Cyrus the Great partnership between the Iranian people and the Israeli people that is going to be the juice of the new Iranian Republic, right? This is coming. So they did the song. You remember the musical Bali High? Remember that? But they just they put the Lee in there. That's going to drop. The Lee's going to drop. It's going to be Baha'i, and everybody's going to be dressed in a festive dress, and there's going to be a horn of plenty and a big table, of plenty, smorgasbord where everyone's living in a garden. Baha'i is coming in a big way. They're all over the world. These temples are all over the world. It's Israel's plan to adopt a great part of the Muslim people, right? In a worldwide religion.
But look at this, okay, where we're looking here in Haifa, okay? We're on Mount Carmel. Mount Carmel is where Elijah fought the priests of Baal. Remember when he mocked them, and built his altar, So I mean, that's the land in Haifa is the what'd you call it, the Baal worshipers?
Mm-hmm.
And how'd they go?
They were all slaughtered. Yeah, they were all slaughtered there. But that reminds me, that was the reference you were saying with the Esperanto of having a religion for the Arab world, or like a language.
Yes.
I didn't realize that. I think you're right about that.
It's the one world religion that, is being built for the end times, because all the other religions were faulty and had, created war on that. So this is going to be the new religion to eclipse Christianity and Judaism and Buddhism and Islam and Hinduism. This is your one world church. That's what these designers have. And the Esperanto is the one world language that they want to move. And like when you hear a prosecutor or a liberal talking about, like what are you talking about? Why don't you just say the person stole a purse? That's kind of like that whole removing the negative from the language. You can never say no, or any word that's negative has to be like turned into a double positive.
Mm-hmm.
Einstein's parents never told him no.
But this is,
I don't think that would be in your best interest. They had to talk and say 8 words rather than no. But but reasoning, and what you're talking about, Mark, is a reasoning language where the reasoning is almost forced into the language, is what we're talking about here. And this is the Israeli, I wouldn't say it's the hardliner, but it's the ideologue. It's the ideological heart and soul of Israel being the world religion.
Right. Yes. I mean, people they just think Judaism, when they hear Israel, but they don't realize, there are obviously quite a few dynamics there, Baha'i being a very large one to consider. And this is where Soros comes in. Soros, even though everyone
Soros.
says
Yep.
Soros is a Jew, I mean, Soros was one of these socialist Zionists, or Soros's grandfather and father were socialist Zionists who, wanted to, bring in this one world language, one world religion. And this is what he's still spending his money on. I mean, we do kind of laugh at the Esperanto thing, like, oh, come on, Soros, like, you're gonna get the whole world to speak your little language, you're gonna get all these Arabs to speak your language, in the Middle East. I don't know,
but see why that's important, Aaron, is that Arabic is the tongue of Allah. And so you have to move the Arab off of the tongue of Allah if you want him to move to a new language. That's the fundamental structuring there. And I think, Baha'i, there's Baha'i temples all over the world. As you know, we did a big show on Baha'i temples.
Way back, I always wondered, was that what the dome was on Jeffrey Epstein's little temple there on
I think so,
little St. James?
Well, it did kind of look like a little Baha'i temple, to be honest with you.
Oh yeah, the Golden Dome thing is all Baha'i, absolutely. And they're big in Chicago. That's one of the things. Willamette, Illinois is their capital in North America, which is a big Chicago thing. So it always comes down to Chicago. The Chicago mob was sure to have their hand in on everything. It is amazing how ubiquitous the Chicago mob was. But, the Baha'i is in Chicago because the mob was there and, gave him some land or whatever, but it's all there. There are
principle of unity of religion. You saw that there, right?
Yeah.
And Wilmette's a little bit farther out. It's not in Skokie. It's not in Glendale. It's not down there in Schaumburg. It's a little bit further out, so you can have a little bit more of an interface to the Protestant religions.
Mm-hmm. But this is definitely the world's fastest growing religion. A lot of diversity. You can see here's their Supreme Court of Justice members and a lot of diversity there. And they, if you don't know about them, now you do, I guess. They are growing. And I do think, just the dynamic of the Iran-Iraq war or the Iran-Israel war and the fact that Haifa and Tel Aviv, which are strongholds of the Baha'i, are really the focus of what's going on, makes me think like, all right, they're gonna be the winners of this thing. The Baha'i are gonna come out of this thing
because you have to be able to read Esperanto because all of they're going to work in that language. I think like if Soros probably writes something, it's in Esperanto, and that creates that closed audience. So what you would print in English would not necessarily reveal alternative motives and things.
This is just like the Catholic Church pushing out Latin, right? In order to get all these satellite countries as a part of the Roman Empire, right? This Baha'i Empire with Esperanto is the same playbook, and it is based in Haifa and Wilmette and Tel Aviv, and like Aaron says, these are the places that are taking the licks, and they're going to take the licking and keep on ticking, and that's going to be the story of Iran.
Is there a 15-minute city plan involved in this, with destroying, Tel Aviv, Haifa?
I think Tehran, well, could be that as well. I don't think there's enough damage, but I think Tehran will be a 15-minute city for sure. A 15-minute city is much easier to control. You know where everybody is all the time, and you have biofeedback, you got to use your cell phone to use a cab, right? So I know where you are all the time. So I agree with you. Tehran is your new 15-minute city, Agenda 2030.
Will that share? Oh, nice. I'm learning how to share photos here. I took a screenshot the other day. Somebody put this is just, we're having a little fun at the end here, folks. So somebody put a thing up there with Alexander Soros and Huma Abedin, and is like, yo, do you have a comment? This is a Twitter post. There was like, do you have a comment for the lovely couple? And everybody was putting their comments in and, yada, yada, this, yada, yada, that. And I chose to use the Esperanto word for congratulations. So you can see my comment down there. Gratulon is congratulations in Esperanto. So I hope somebody saw that. I hope some of the Esperanto speakers around the world saw that and had a chuckle.
If you can put that on your resume, you can get a job anywhere.
I know, right?
That's right. And my comment was they certainly deserve each other. And then quietly I put in Esperanto, I said, the best punishment for both of them is each other, you know, but I put it in Esperanto. So only the Esperantees will pick that up.
You know, we maybe Mark and I will start like a weekly Esperanto 101 because we actually have the Esperanto books
Yes.
around here somewhere.
Yes.
And we could just read, you know, the, it, you know, go, come, me, you. I mean, we could get started on that for
the best
probably
thing
a few
to say,
lessons.
the best way to go about this in Esperanto is the phrase, how do you say? So learn that and then just start pointing at things, and then take the damage videos from Haifa and Tel Aviv. I guarantee you that just the metadata will pick up. It will be amazing, because that's the next religion. That's the next language for Iran.
Mm-hmm. And maybe I'll even play a little video here from the first motion picture group back when they, you know, because they definitely, this is all about here. I'll play this. We'll play this on the way out here. This will be a fun one.
Great.
All about Esperanto and how the aggressor, you know, this is back in World War II, or I guess this would have been post World War II time. Where here, sorry, I thought I had it on screen. This one here. I don't know. Did we ever show you this one, George?
Oh, go ahead.
Fort Riley, Kansas, headquarters of aggressor. An imaginary enemy used in training United States troops. Here, armed forces of the fictitious enemy country.
Can't see it.
Oh, you can't? Is it not on? Oh, it's, you know, I guess, sorry, I gotta
share
learn how to
get rid
share
of
better.
your other
picture of them. Yeah, there we go. Okay, here. So this is first motion picture group, or this was, you know, back when the military was making movies.
This is where they got, I think the military got infiltrated through this program.
Spanish. This one right here is where Spanish flu was recapitulated for the big kill, the die-off. Go ahead.
Here, we'll play the beginning.
Fort Riley, Kansas, headquarters of aggressor. An imaginary enemy used in training United States troops. Here, armed forces of the fictitious enemy country receive unique and thorough orientation.
A la causa, por quio tel multas Davi camarados devi foriras anto vi.
This speech in Esperanto, the language of aggressor, is part of the Aggressor Center's training program in developing the concept of a maneuver enemy.
So that's all there is. Just, you can see the military in their training, you know, decades ago, as they were creating live exercises and things to train the troops. They would use the Esperantist language as like the ubiquitous language of, you know, the enemy troops in the training.
And this is not new, because I just sent you one there that's a little short one.
Okay.
Because this is like Esperanto. I mean, it's not something that came out like World War II.
No, it's before that. It's from late 1800s.
Yeah.
You know, late 1800s.
They just adopted this because this is coming out of Jared Leto's you know, Los Angeles Air Force Base propaganda movie studio, I'm sure, after World War II. But yeah, this will be the lever arm. I agree with you, Aaron, because there's a lot of, and as Mark said, there's a lot of biblical prophecy here that there will be a slaughter after the penance is paid by fire, right? And now here they're paying their penance by fire, and now the slaughter comes with the IRCG. I think that's coming.
Well, and to go back to Bannon's point of the coalition, right, or whatever, this coalition or MAGA or whoever, right, the ones who stick with Trump, the ones who are you know, not wavering at all through this are the most religious, right? The Christian fundamentalists, certainly the Jewish Jews and the Christian fundamentalists are really sticking with Trump on this one. I think he's finding the most loyalty and the most, go to the end with him on this through that religious component. So he's going to want to be sure, and everybody who is noticing that, that's obvious. So I'm sure they're all going to want to be keen to
wars
cultivate
and rumors
that.
of wars, you know.
But yeah, we'll leave it right there. We'll play the rest of the Esperanto video there without us on screen and call it a day, and maybe come back on Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday. You made me hungry for. I haven't had pizza in forever, but you made me hungry for Papa John's. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess Papa John's. That's our Papa John's commercial today there for everyone. They do have good pizza. Maybe we'll get some Papa John's here ourselves. So, no, we didn't mean to say anything, throw too much shade on you, Papa John's. We love your pizza, but you're part of the operation, whether you like it or not. Papa John's.
We all speak the things we hear, bring it out, and that way, if it's out there, they have a right to rebut it or affirm it.
It's certainly fun to get things on the record with you, George. We appreciate doing shows with you and being able to throw things on the record, and certainly all of you there in the live chat. Thank you for being there. I stopped. We had the troll there, so I kind of just gave up.
We have to, like Mark says, this has to be an open war room. The only way we look at things and threats and so forth is keep an open mind and keep throwing stuff up on the whiteboard and keep thinking it through and wargaming it and seminaring it, and stepping through, and that's how we end up being the front line, in this operation.
So yeah, we'll play the rest of that video. If folks want to come out and visit with Neighborhood News and George, we're doing the second half of August. We'll be out here for a couple weeks, second half of August, doing the whiteboards, doing the work, doing the research, doing the charrette. So definitely come out, hang out with us then. And
there was a lady that came in here today, George. I guess she watched you on YouTube, and she kind of was under the impression that you were going to be here in Lambertville tomorrow.
No, I think she got her messages crossed.
And I was like, I didn't know about that. I'm not sure. So anyhow, I just
there's assassins that always place me there. No, I'm supposed to be there in August.
It might have been that comment because there was a comment about Monroe County, Michigan, and there have been 2 double murders here in the last 3 to 5 days, or the murder suicide. I guess it was 2 homicide suicides in the last couple of days. Just tragic, stories involving young people and everything. I don't think there's any deep state component or any component that maybe is necessary to our research or anything, but they are stories in the news that have come up which are very terrible for the area, and someone in the chat mentioned that on your live stream. So that might have been what it was. But
they got to meet you guys, and the part I love about people going over there, they can see that when I describe the situation, you guys are there. It's knock 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 on wood. Remember that song? I'm going to knock 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 on wood. Doom 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 knock knock knock. Right? You when you go there, it's doom doom doom. You see what we've done. You see the show. You see the school. It's all right there in front of you. It's brick and mortar. So that's the beautiful part about people going to the Metroplex.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're all invited. George will be here in August, but certainly you don't need to wait for him. You can come by yourself. We can sit in the chair here next to me and Mark and be on the show anytime you want. Just come on in, 8015 Summerfield here in Lambertville, Michigan.
Summerfield and Secor. Summerfield and Secor. Susan Croft sang about it. Summerfield.
So we'll leave it right there. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you on the weekend, and play the rest of the Esperanto here. We do love talking Esperanto. The aggressor. Soros the aggressor. See you next time, folks. Thanks a lot for watching Neighborhood News. George Webb Investigates.
These U.S. soldiers are acting as troops of the mythical enemy aggressor nation. They have their own complete military organization. Their purpose is to act in field exercises as an opposing army against which regular U.S. troops can test their combat training. All U.S. troops are oriented on aggressor armed forces, equipment, history, and basic characteristics, just as if they were entering combat against an actual enemy.
That's all in Esperanto.
The aggressor soldier is provided with identification documents in the Esperanto language.
aggressor was successful in the center, but his victory was not as complete as he thought. On the flanks, the American lines held and even managed to take a few aggressor prisoners.
They got that triangle logo.
The prisoners were taken immediately to the nearest command post where a U.S. interrogating officer was ready to go to work on them in their own language.
Right here in this rural junction.
I bet we don't have any Esperanto
Thank you, Webb.
interrogators.
That's why Mark and I, we should start the channel, you know, or start the lesson. We'd be like the only ones on the internet doing Esperanto research. I'm pretty sure, you know, the niche for us.
We would have the wedding party of George Soros.
That's supposed to be the reserve.
Yeah.
Well, that may be an outfit that we got that aerial photo of this morning. Este sitio Roto 3.
No, he's speaking Esperanto, yeah.
Where are you? Looks like they've committed a reserve, sir.
Looks like Eisenhower.
From the information gathered from aerial photos and the interrogation of aggressor prisoners, the American commanding officer decides a flanking counterattack would succeed.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, folks, for being here. See you next time. To support George Webb's citizen journalism, please subscribe to his Substack for $8 a month.